Hi everybody. Today is, as some of you may have seen on my Facebook or my teacher Instagram, a memory that I hope that I'm never going to forget, but at the same time it brings up so many feelings. And I just want to take a minute to share with all of you some of the things that happened to me 5 years ago as I lived through this experience. I know I recently watched Brittany Sinich, the 5'1" teacher, shout out to her, tell her story of how she overcame the Florida school shootings that she went through and everything that happened to her afterwards. And my heart goes out to her as such a young teacher. Going through anything like that is so difficult and painful, and just trying to get started as a teacher is hard enough. And having to go through all those personal things, the tragedy that she endured, my heart just really goes out to her. So a little shout out to Brittany. Brittany, I love you, and I relate to you. Our family has gone through so much. And when I think back about it, like, I can't even believe all the things that have happened to us, just like random things. And, sometimes people say, oh, well, what are you doing in your life that you have so many random, like, I don't know if I really want to call them tragedies, but just like really weird stuff happening to you. But good things do happen to good people, and bad things happen to good people. I believe in God, and I know that his plans are good for me. And no matter what I go through, I'm always going to be an overcomer. But that doesn't mean that things are easy all the time, that things are roses all the time. I've always been of the opinion that you need to try to make lemonade out of the lemons when you're given them. And so I keep a happy face most of the time. A lot of my friends may not even know all the things that we've been through, simply because I don't want to bring other people down, spending time dwelling on things that I can't change. And I just try to make the best of it. I try to be an optimist. But in the 5 years since the accident happened that I shared with some of you on Facebook today and Instagram, there have been some times when it's gotten the better of me. So I just want to take a minute to kind of honor that part of my story, I guess, and share with you a little bit about some of the things that have happened to us that we've had to deal with. And I hope that by sharing that, it will help people to realize that no situation that you go through is going to completely define you. It's really what you take from it and what you learn from it and who you become afterwards that defines who you are as a person and defines your life. So 5 years ago this week, my family and I were doing what many families do. We were attending the induction ceremony for our honor roll student. She was getting inducted into the National Honor Society. That's our middle daughter, who is getting ready to get married now. We were at the ceremony. We normally go, it was a Wednesday night. We normally go to Wednesday night services at the church at that time, because there was a really good youth group service that our girls enjoyed going to. And they were doing a special evening, I think it was a senior night, where the seniors get to tell their story. And so my girls were kind of bummed out that this was on the same night. So when we finished early, they decided that they wanted to go ahead and try to make the end of the church service. I have been working on my, at the time I was working on my national board renewal, and anybody who's gone through that knows how much work it is. And it was getting close to the end, and so I was concerned that I really needed that time at home to write my entries. So I just said, hey, I don't think I have time to go to church tonight, but you guys are welcome to go to church without me. And I sent them on their way. They dropped me off at home, and I started working at the table, and I didn't think much of it. So it's 8 o'clock, and service was over. I think that the special thing that they were doing with the seniors was over a little bit before 9. Right around 9 o'clock, I get a phone call, and it's my dear friend, Sarah, whose family has been so amazing to my family. They've kind of like taken our kids in like they were an extra set of parents. And her voice sounded really shaky, and that was like really unusual. And she said, she was very calm. She said, there's been an accident. And she's like, but before I tell you anything else, I want you to know that everybody's okay. Okay, well, my family has been in accidents before, car accidents, but not the kind of car accident that they were in that evening. And so I'm like, oh, it was a little fender bender, da 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 da. And she was, I think, trying to like make it seem, you know, like a little bit less scary than it was. But she was standing there watching it, and the police and the fire department was around my vehicle at that time, trying to figure out how they were going to cut my husband out of the car. Basically what had happened was they pulled out of the church parking lot, and the sun was just starting to go down. So it was kind of like that time where it's not really super easy to see. It wasn't all the way dark yet. And when the street that the church is on, it's a main highway. So they pulled into the center lane. The intent was that my husband was going to turn left into the center lane, and he was going to then wait for traffic to be lighter and move over into the actual driving lane to the right, so that he could go southbound on the highway. Well, apparently another van was coming the other direction, was coming northbound on that highway, and because of the time of day, he wasn't very visible. We have a lot of reason to believe that he was speeding. And he came out of a restaurant that was down the road, about a quarter mile down the road, and was driving up the center turn lane towards my family, and he didn't have his lights on. So my husband didn't see him, maybe partially because of the time of day, but also because of the lights, and we think maybe because he was speeding, which we can't actually prove. But needless to say, there was a head-on collision. My family was hit head-on with this much larger vehicle. They were in a Chevy Malibu, so you know, it was like a work van, and the car spun around and was thrown into the opposing traffic, and thank God no one was coming, because they could have been hit that way as well. And they were turned around backwards, basically. So many things happened that day in such a short period of time, and I know that like God's hand was totally protecting my family. There were angels all around. Just a few minutes behind the accident, the Nags Head police department, or fire department, I should say, there were some volunteer firemen that were there, and they came to the scene and immediately started helping. So my family got the fastest care, the best possible care, and it was just amazing. I cannot thank them enough, because I know that them acting quickly is what saved my husband's life. But you know, I was very lucky that day. My girls, you know, got out of the car. There was a friend in the car. He was fine. And my middle daughter, she broke her first rib, which it's kind of like right around her clavicle. So, you know, she was pretty sore, but she was all right. She didn't have her seatbelt on. My husband, however, because he was the driver, he was forced down underneath the steering column, and he was stuck in there pretty good. And the car just crumpled all around him. So they were able to get everyone out in the back. They got the friend out who was sitting in the front, I believe. Well, I think he was in the front. I'm not sure. I wasn't in the car. Anyway, they got them out, and then they had to get the jaws of life and tear the top of the car off and pull my husband out. Okay. I did not know when I was on the phone with my friend how bad it really was. I had no idea. She just said, you need to come. She's like, come to the hospital, meet them there. So I went to the emergency room. As soon as I walked in and I saw the huge group of students that were there to support my family, there were so many of them. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I just broke down in tears, and I hadn't even seen my family yet to see what the situation was. But I knew that it had to have been a bad accident if all those people were there. So I'm like, this is not just a fender bender we're dealing with. So I went back. They let me back in the emergency room. And my oldest daughter, she had a neck brace on, and she was like just really bruised up and cut in her face. I think her glasses broke and like cut her face or whatever. And, you know, just seeing that was really hard. And then, you know, I saw my baby, who she bit through her lip. I say baby, but she's just my youngest. This was 5 years ago. She's a senior this year. So, you know, she was a middle schooler. She bit into her lip, and it was like hanging down. And sorry for the gruesome details, but I'm just letting you know, like, when I walked into that emergency room, what I saw was not what I expected to see. This was in a moment in my life that there was no way I could have planned for. There was no way I could have known that was going to happen. And there was a part of me that was like, I cannot believe that I was not in that car. Like, why was I not in that car? And I was kind of like almost, I felt guilty. I felt a little bit angry. Like, there were just so many emotions. And, but when I saw my husband, and he was barely talking, he was really, you know, he had several breaks. He had spinal fractures. He had hip fractures. He had a neck fracture. They were getting ready to send him to another hospital so he could get better care in another state. It was a lot. It was a lot. But, you know, things calmed down. We got through it. You know, everybody got stitched up. Everybody got healed up and came back home. My daughter, she had some like anxiety after that for a little while that she had to deal with, but it got better. I wasn't even in the car that day, but every time that I pulled out of that parking lot, I felt like I had been in the accident. It was very traumatic for me. It wasn't just traumatic that evening, but it proved to be traumatic like long after that. Financially, it was devastating to us. We had just purchased a vehicle, and so it was our first brand new car. You know, we'd never owned a brand new car before, but we decided to buy one because we commuted a lot, and we felt like we needed one that was reliable. So we bought a brand new vehicle for the first time, and we'd only had it for a little while. Thankfully, we had the Gap insurance that took care of it. But even that is not, you know, as simple as they make it sound when you purchase it. Just trying to get a new car after you've just gotten a loan not that long ago. There were a lot of things we had to explain. And then our insurance skyrocketed. Okay, so of all the timing that this could, like, it wasn't great timing as far as everything else that was going on. There's never a great time for something like that to happen to you. But it just so happened that 2 of our daughters had just gotten their driver's license. Because our oldest daughter had been involved in a lot of things at school, and she just not really had time to get her license. She was working, and different things kept her from getting her license on time. So our oldest daughter and our middle daughter got their driver's license at the same time. That had just happened several weeks before that. So our insurance went up for that. And then we had a major car accident. It was like $50,000. I think it was probably more than that if you include the medical bills that my family incurred. So all of a sudden we had huge medical bills. My husband couldn't work for a while. It was like a really tough time. Okay, so after that experience, like, I tried to go on and like do everything just like everything's fine. You know, I shouldn't be complaining. My family is all living. They all walked from that accident. I am, you know, so blessed that they're here today. But we went through a lot of struggles after that. And those struggles, I didn't really like stop and think about what that was doing to me, like on the inside. I didn't really deal with it. And I think that's why I brought up Brittany and everything that she went through, because when I watched her story on YouTube and I listened to her talk about what she went through, she was saying, you know, I didn't stop to take care of me and stop to take time to heal. Like, mental health is a thing. Sorry, there's I'm telling you the serious story, and there's airplanes. It's a nice day out, see? Good time to get your flight hours in. Anyway, mental health is a real thing, and it takes work, and you have to put time in when something happens to you that's unplanned like that, and there are repercussions like financially, emotionally. I know that God was there taking care of our family, and I trust him, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have like a real physiological reaction to the things that happened. And I needed to take time out for me to deal with that. Instead of dealing with it, I just kept going at this like fast pace that I always live my life. I'm one of those people that I like to do a lot of things. I'm energized by being around lots of different groups of people. I'm energized by being involved in planning activities and leading things and, doing creative things. And that's wonderful. But when something like that happens to you, you have to take time to slow down and just take care of yourself. And I didn't do that. Anyway, after that, we went through some other things that happened, and those are probably other stories. But as a result of that, there were times when I wasn't the best, at my job, because I was just trying to ignore that all of these things happened to me. And I was put on the happy face. Nobody wants to hear about all of your struggles, and you need to be there for other people, and you need to be there for your family. And I felt a huge responsibility to try to work extra. I worked a second job and tried to pay down our debts that we had from the medical bills. In the accident, my husband was cited because he was passed out, and the driver said that that it was his fault. I wasn't there, so I can't really say more about that. But basically, my husband was wrongfully cited for the accident, and we tried, but we couldn't figure out who was going to prove otherwise. So a lot of things happened after that, and I had to work really hard to try to get back up on top of all of that. And that shaped who I was, or I let it shape who I was. And it affected me, whether I realized it or not. It affected my productivity. It was a trauma that was lying there under the surface, and it made me reactive to things. It made me reactive sometimes to my students in ways that I never anticipated that it would. Right now I'm teaching middle school, and I'm handling, of course I'm doing distance learning right now, which can throw anyone into a tizzy, but I'm handling students in 8th grade, which they're going through a lot themselves, and sometimes they can be a handful, difficult to deal with because of the way that they think about life, and just some of the things, the challenges of that developmental level. I thought that was a grade level that I wouldn't be good at because I was reacting to things. But what I didn't realize was that the trauma that I experienced in my family's accident, it played a role in how I reacted to everything in my life. So when I came to understand about childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, adult trauma, and I started reading up more about it, and our school district started to look into it more. And I'm part of C4C, which is Congregations for Children. It's an organization that advocates through churches for public school children, and especially students who are economically needy or disadvantaged. Those things, I didn't just relate to that from being a little farm kid in rural Ohio, Midwest Ohio, but I also related to it from a standpoint of being an adult who's experienced trauma. It changes you. So I'm really happy to say that I'm working for a school district that honors that understands that about people, that knows that when you go through those things, it's going to affect the way that you approach your job, the way that you approach your class. But I just wanted to come on here and talk about it a little bit because I want to say things are way better for me now than they were then. I went through a period of time, 3 years, where after that it was really difficult to get back up on top of life. And I feel like it's just starting to come together again. There were challenges in my relationships. There were challenges in my friendships related to how I processed things. There were challenges in my finances. There were challenges with my family because my kids didn't understand everything that we had to do after that, to try to, get ourselves back on track. So I'm just thankful. Every time I see that picture and it comes back up on my news feed, I'm just thankful that I'm not there anymore, that I've overcome that and I've made it out on the other side, and that would not happen without God. I firmly believe that. But I wanted to share my story because I know that some of you might be, freshly into some trauma. You might have just had something that's happened to you in the last few months or in the last year that you're still processing. And I want to say to you, it will get better. Better times are coming. Just put one foot in front of the other and, make sure you take time to process what's happened to you. It's not your fault. When crappy things happen to you in life like that, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong by being at home that day instead of being in the car with my family. I would have just been in the accident too. I couldn't have stopped it. It was going to happen. It just happened. It's just life. Not everything bad that happens to you in your life is your fault. And it also doesn't mean that God's not paying attention to you. There's evil in the world and bad things happen. Sometimes it's random and sometimes it's because, other people are doing the wrong thing. But in any case, you can make it through. If there's any way I can help anybody, let me know. Shoot me a private message and I'd be happy to talk with you, pray for you. But I really just wanted to share this story because I finally feel like when I think about that, I'm at peace about it. And I know that there's been healing and I know that I've moved on. So it was a good time to share when it came up on my newsfeed today. So that's my story. As always, I leave you with work hard, be kind, amazing things will happen. Talk to you soon.